Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where it's my crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of the Blacklist. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, we're literally picking up after last week's episode. Now, the whole situation is, we're surrounded, so we got to find a secret passage, because obviously, Bino, like, the way he handles stuff, like, there's no way he's moving large sums of money, like, through the front door, unless it's like, well, maybe you'd actually be able to ask Bino if you hadn't killed him, which is obviously for Reddington's like, well, too late, it's too late, it's already done, so let's just kind of work together. And obviously he's like, let's put our issues aside, which he's like, am I really supposed to? And it's like, at the very least, let's work together, because we, at the very least, we're helping each other get out of here. So they find a secret door, they bounce. But Liz ends up turning on Reddington by saying, like, hey, talking to the officer outside, Reddington, that man in there, I think he's got a gun or whatever. It's like, really? It's like, to be fair, she's like, I made it clear, I'm not going to help you, I'm just getting away from you. And it's like, once again, it's just kind of that thing, you're like, oh, damn you, Liz, you're so ungrateful. Like, there is that part where it's like, you understand where she's coming from, because she's super pissed at Reddington. It's like, I'm not going to forgive you, you're responsible for all the terrible stuff, you killed my mom, I want you to suffer. Granted, it's not going to bring her the satisfaction she thinks it is, because revenge rarely ever does. It doesn't fill that hole in your heart like she thinks it will. Like, it'll make it... Like, it's almost like she thinks at the very least, on some level, maybe she was thinking that if she got revenge against Reddington, everything would fall back into place. I mean, there was no going back. Like, I don't think she ever... And I think I've talked about this in previous reviews, maybe even the last review. I don't think she's ever thought about what the aftermath of that's going to look like. Like, once you actually think about it in the grand scheme of things, the government's not going to be too happy about it, because it gets brought up this episode, because, like, right, you are killing the government CI, regardless of him being the big bad that he is. It's like, he's still the government CI, so they wouldn't look upon that too kindly. I don't think you'd be able to just casually disappear. Like, there's no normal life for you and Agnes, so I don't know. It's interesting. But, I love Reddington be like, oh, like, hey, so which one, great, you're here. Talking to the cop saying, like, oh, Funyuns or Fritos? He's like, it does say fun size, But because of that, like, Liz is kind of in the wind again. So Reddington's kind of avoiding talking to Cooper, which Cooper hears about the aftermath of everything. So I was like, yeah, that was a crime scene and everything now, but you're checking on Wrestler's situation isn't good. It's actually pretty damn bad. But Liz ends up calling him out to be like, hey, I need your help with all of this. And it's like, for her, it's like, she doesn't want to be on the run, because in Cooper's mind, Reddington doing what he wants to make her, like, he's like, if I thought Reddington giving you a new identity and disappearing would actually do anything, that it'd be a good thing in the end, he's like, then I wouldn't, then I'd actually let him do all of it. But in his mind, it's like, I truly believe you coming in is the best option. So ironically enough, they put her in the box, which I'm like, oh, it comes full circle. I think I caught a quick glimpse of that last episode, like, preview-wise, but I was like, that's so interesting that it comes back full circle. The same box Reddington had been locked up for a lot of the first season. He wasn't locked up the entire first season. Like, he ends up breaking out, or rather, like, someone breaks in to try and kill him, that whole thing. But, yeah, Liz gets locked up in a box, so it's like, yeah, full circle. It would have been interesting if Reddington got to talk to her like that, because it'd be like, well, I guess it does kind of work out, because Reddington does end up taking her, but it's fascinating, considering, like, right, people broke into that task force to kill him before, so it's interesting to see things kind of play out in that same regard. Because let's not forget, like, one of the episodes, Wrestler was in a very similar condition that he is. I mean, granted, he was, like, shot. Granted, I don't think his condition wasn't as bad. He wasn't just locked in there. He was shot, if I remember correctly. But it's like, oh, a lot of that came full circle. Like, I don't know if they purposely did it, you would think, but a lot of those elements, it's just like, it seemed like too on purpose in certain regards. But, I thought it was really interesting, the conversation between Aram and Liz, because for him, it's like, he's just, like, for such a long time, he's been trying to come to terms with, like, who Liz has become right now. Like, yeah, this isn't a person I know, this isn't my friend, but now he's starting to realize, like, he's like, this right here, this version of you, this is the real you. And the other Liz that was my friend, that was, like, the mask, that was the fake you. And, so he's coming to terms with, like, That's gotta suck, especially after everything that they've been through. But Liz is trying to justify by being like, anyone who's been through what I've been through would have done the exact same things, maybe even worse. But also it's a thing of, it's easy to try and justify your actions now. But for her, she doesn't regret what she's done. It's almost like she's trying to say she has a clear conscience about it. To a certain extent, which you're like, actually, we as the audience know you don't. You're keeping up a front, because I think if you let it creep in now, like, no, after everything I've sacrificed to get here, it's like, I can't. But it's like, no, we saw the flip side of the episode where, yeah, you were remorseful. Like, you regretted a lot of decisions you made. So it's not like it's all hunky-dory. It's almost, I think it's more so like she wouldn't change anything. I'm sure she actually would. She would handle things a little bit differently knowing what she knows now, but still, obviously, Panda Baker shows up, and it's like, oh, I'm not going to help Liz. It's like, what? But you know her record. You know who she was before Reddington popped up in your life. You know what she's been through. But it's like, regardless of all of that, the fact of the matter is Liz has crossed a lot of lines, and she can't just get away with everything scot-free. So charges are going to be dropped on her. She is going to go to jail. I get it, Harold. You want to protect her. You want to say that there's going to be some way, but it's like, no, it doesn't work out like that. The fact of the matter is Liz is going to have to pay for her crimes. So, but obviously, like, the moment someone's breaking in, I'm like, that's Reddington. I was slightly thinking, maybe it's Townsend, but I was like, nah, it's gotta be Reddington. It's gotta be Reddington with the flare and everything, because I was like, Townsend wouldn't know where to get them, because I don't think he knows where the task force is. Maybe he does, but it's also, because there's also a thought, like, well, would he actually attack the building? And it's like, Townsend's so clouded by revenge, going after Liz, it wouldn't be too surprising, but he'd be at least a little more calculating. At least, like, the convoy last episode is not the same thing as a fully fortified FBI building. So that's it. I mean, to be fair, as we know, the FBI, that building has been hit before. Hence, I'm referencing, like, when people burst in there. Because that dealt with, God, what was his name? Was it Berlin? Yeah, because he was the one responsible for all that. No, it was someone else that busted in there to try and kill him, right? But wasn't that all related to Berlin? Which you kind of forget, that was Peter freaking Stormare. If I remember correctly, Berlin was played by Peter Stormare, wasn't he? I'm blanking. Oh my god, that's so long ago. I mean, that was like 2013, dude. Jesus, that was so long ago. It's crazy to think about. I believe that was the case. I believe, like I said, I think Berlin was the one responsible for all the people coming after him, like that whole shebang-a-bang. I don't know why I said that. When people did come to kill Reddington inside of the task force, like, they were, like, related to Berlin, weren't they? Once again, I don't remember. I'm sure someone's going to correct me in the comments down below. Please do, because, like I said, my memory is horrendous. But nevertheless, so, like, it wouldn't be too much of a surprise. Like, Townsend could potentially do it if he wanted to. But the moment the person was telling Liz to hang on, was like, oh yeah, they're concerned about your safety. No, it's definitely Reddington. Which obviously Reddington, at the same time, it's like, well, the Liz thing played out the way it did. Well, now I'm going to bring in Teddy. Well, for one, I love the fact is that Godwin got drawn into this. Like, that was like, he got set up because he's like, no, it's too much of a coincidence. Like, the person who normally does the papers, Mary, isn't doing it. It's like, it's just, it is what it is. And it's like, and the dude reveals himself. He's like, yeah, you're right. There's no such thing as coincidence. It's like the whole thing was a long play con to get Godwin to Reddington, because Reddington's like, right. Townsend didn't have time to research it because you're his it guy. You handle a lot of the research and background on people, so he wasn't able to kind of look into my guy. So it made it easier for me to snatch you up. And obviously bringing in Teddy and his wife Edna. I think this is the first time especially because Liz got introduced. We've seen Teddy all the time, but we've never seen Edna. That's interesting. It's kind of interesting. It's almost sweet in a twisted way that it's like, oh, you guys, it's not the same, but I mean, it's a twisted relationship, kind of like James and Alyssa from The End of the Effing World. Not in the same vein, but it's like it's just kind of like, wow, there's love here, but you both do this twisted thing that you do. And even Teddy talking about how him and Edna met, and then when Liz show up, it's like, oh, hey, this is his wife Edna, and it's like they put a chip inside of him, and they're going to follow him to Townsend. I think it was a mistake to put Liz in the, like, stable next to him. But I think for them, it's like, yeah, Townsend's going to kill you. Like, you would never work with them, right? That is kind of weird. The guy's gunning for you, and you're like, no, I'm going to work with you just because she's like, if I offer him Reddington, he'll leave me and my family alone. Which it seems like in his own way, Townsend would have. He would have honored that because he says it later on. Killing Liz in front of Reddington is his dream, but if it means only killing Reddington, fine. It's just like he knows how much he wanted Reddington to feel his pain, but it's like if I'm not able to do that, if I'm not able to just kind of make him suffer the way I've suffered and just have to kill him, then so be it. Liz and her daughter get to live and stuff like that. But I'm like, I just thought that was so interesting, especially because you were so dead set on killing her, but I guess it was for the purpose of making Reddington suffer because she matters so much to him. So I was almost like, what are you doing, Liz? Kind of, once again, Sebastian Maniscalco. I butcher his last name every time. Like, once again, just like, because of SEN and Christian always does an impersonation of him. What are you doing? I can't do it. I'm not good at impersonations. That's what it makes me think of I can't not hear, what are you doing, like that. I can't. Like, it's stuck in my brain now. Damn you, Christian Harloff! Nevertheless, But the fact that she's willing to help and everything, it makes sense. You're trying to look out for yourself and your daughter. Sure, you're helping him escape. It is kind of also messed up because it's like, well, he didn't end up killing one of Reddington's dude, just hurt him. But it's like, yeah, you would have been responsible for that. Because that was another thing too, like where it's like, Harold's like, keeping things going the way you are. If you go with Reddington, there's just going to be more bloodshed and death. At least this way we can mitigate that and kind of put an end to this. Because this all has to end here and now. Or if it doesn't, it's going to keep going and things are just getting bloodier and messier. But because this was all about trying to take Townsend down. That was kind of, obviously the task force is looking for Godwin. Obviously, Reddington had him until Liz helped him escape. And she was just so nonchalant about, oh my God, what happened? Did something happen? So it's like, all right. So Reddington ends up calling Cooper and letting him know, which is so interesting because Cooper was like, I literally went through so much defending you to Pennebaker because she was immediately like, this has Reddington all over. She's like, and now I don't know that you had nothing to do with it. That the fact is Cooper didn't even let it cross his mind that it was Reddington is actually kind of sweet yet sad at the same time. It's like sweet because it's like, you don't immediately think the worst of Reddington. Sad because you're so naive not to immediately think the worst of Reddington, so it's a catch-22 double-edged sword. That's the best way to describe quote-unquote Raymond Reddington. So I thought that was so fascinating, but and just him blowing up at Reddington, it's like, wait, so you did this? Yes. And it's like, you put a hole in it, and it's like, yes. He's like, to be fair, if Pennebaker's got an issue, like, I can cover it. The fact of the matter is, but it's like, you did all that, it's like, don't worry, I'm going to help with Liz by telling her what she's always wanted. The truth. I'm going to give her answers. I'm going to tell her everything. He's like, then why are you calling me right now? It's like, well, they were looking for Godwin at the same time because they figured he'd be the best chance to go after because they ended up being able to, talking to other people at the like front business that Townsend ran. The fact is they were able to identify Godwin and they were after him. But like Reddington's like, yeah, he's got to be in this general area because he's only got this far of a head start. But Godwin also calls up at the same time he's calling up Townsend about making the deal, which he's reluctant. But for Godwin, it's like, this is the only way to end this. Because I think for him, it's like Townsend's need for revenge going about all of this has kind of exposed everything to the point like their operations are in danger. Like obviously the FBI was at the office and stuff like that. Like him being Townsend's right hand and kind of closest confidant, as like his other right hand Elias was kind of saying like, yeah, you're basically a friend and family. So Townsend wants you away and safe, which is kind of sweet. The fact is he's looking after people like that. We don't know how deep and how long these like connections run. Like the circumstances under which they met and like why they're so loyal to him to the point like Godwin's like, yeah, I'm not going to betray Townsend, but he ended up telling the FBI eventually what Liz was up to because she was going to sell him out. It's like, right, she ended up calling Townsend, at like, oh, Mrs. French. She's like, yep, it's like, oh, turn on the tracker, we'll be there. And she turns it on despite everything. And Reddington once again claims that, everything he's ever done has been to protect her. So he's going to give her the truth and everything. So sadly for Townsend, when they roll up, it's like, oh, she's in a plane and ends up taking off. So, because at the same time, Cooper was like, we got to call whoever we can, Dembe, whoever, try to get Reddington and let him know that Liz is doing this, which Pennebaker's not too happy about. It's like, wait, what? She was going to do that? Once again, it's like, kill our CI? That wasn't going to look good, like, after all that she's done. And it's like, basically, which is interesting hearing this word because I haven't heard it in a long time. They put a burn notice on it. You're burned, and it's like, I need to go back and watch that show. I watched the final season, but there's still like a good chunk of that show I ended up missing. I watched a good chunk of it, but a good chunk of it I also missed. I'm trying to think where I could track that down. I think I want to say maybe Tubi or like maybe it's on Amazon Prime. I don't know. But it's like, yeah, I know what a burn notice is because of the show. And it's like, oh, yeah, basically the government's like, oh, we're pretending like we never had any connection to you. Like, we're pretending like we had no connection to Liz and anything that she's ever done. It's like, for one, it's like all the good that she did, all the bad people she brought in. It's like, that's not just on Reddington, that's on her too. But it's like, nah, it's too late. All the lines that she's crossed, they made it, the DOJ was kind of like, yeah, we made it clear. They made it clear. She's done. And when they bring her in, the fact of the matter is, this whole task force, you're going to pretend like it never existed either. It's like, whew. So many reasons for Liz not to get caught because, once again, it's like, even if she was trying to do the quote unquote right thing, it's like, and even Cooper tried to do the right thing because he thought he was doing what was best for Liz, but it's like, oh, Reddington actually was right in the end, like it kind of typically is. Doesn't always handle things the best way, but he always, he has the foresight to know, like, oh, it's not going to work out. Even being like, yeah, Pennebaker is not offering her a deal and stuff like that. So it's like, so in the end, Reddington doing what he did kind of was the best option. But obviously they end up being on the plane for a while and stuff like that. And also like Liz got to talk to Wrestler for a little bit. But sadly, his condition kind of worsens later on. Who knows if he's actually going to make it through this? Like, it looks pretty bad. Obviously, Liz is like, this isn't how I want the things to be. Like, obviously, more so, like, when it comes to them, so... But on the plane, like, as they're flying over a place, like, Liz is looking out the window, and she looks at her arm, and there's, like, a set of, like, a river. It splits in that Y formation, just like the marker on her arm, and it's like, wait, what is this? And you're like, for Reddington, it's like, it all connects to, that night at the fire. He was like, what we made a lot of what we did. And it's like, kind of have regrets about what we did. And she's like, who was we? And so we don't so it was interesting because this all connects. Because Reddington's like, he looked at I feel like I've seen it somewhere before. And one day he's looking on a map and he finds that river. It's like, it's not an exact, but it's close enough they didn't realize it's like what this is all about. And so this starts piecing things together. I'm like, so it is kind of what I thought it was at the end of the day. Like Reddington, like they're in Latvia, they land, and he takes her to a very specific place, and he's basically like, all right, it's time for me to break this all down for you. You were right on some cases. She's like, so you were in 13. He's like, yeah, you got some of it right. Yes, I was and am in 13, but I never stole the Sikorsky archives that that everyone, like the 13 packets of intelligence that was stolen from the KGB. And it's like, yeah, I never stole it. It was a gift. And it's like, who stole it? And it's like, it was from one of your mom's closest friends. And I was like, she's like, no. It's like, no. You framed it. It's like, no. Katerina was never framed. He's saying, and this is where we get to the, oh God, this is so good, this is so cool, that basically your mom gave it to me as a gift because it would eventually become a seed for what I've been building for these past 3 decades. That would be the centerfold of intelligence that I would eventually use to build my criminal empire for the past 3 decades. Like, this is what I've been working with Sapanoff to build. For what purpose, we'll get to in a second because that's still unclear. But that's so, like, the moment it's just like, wait, because it's like, I used this to become the criminal I have become, to protect you, to keep your mom hidden. And it's just like, so that in itself opens up 1,000 different questions. But then she's like, well, where are we? He's like, basically, this is the centerfold of it all. This is a piece of the machine, and the door is open. And he says, this is the Blacklist. And you're like, like the gravitas with this way it's said, and it being the last words of the episode, this is the Blacklist. It's like, oh, fuck yeah, dude, that's so crazy. I mean, it makes sense in the grand scheme because it's like, even being a top criminal, to have access to the information he has, like, to know what he knows about the criminals that most governments, most of the world doesn't even know exist, that stay so hidden beneath the radar. It's because the Sikorsky archive is the seed. It's the centerfold. It was the beginning stages of it. Eventually, I think he just probably naturally built a criminal organization around it and eventually gathered up a lot of intelligence over the years. And so, but it's still at the heart of it. It's the Blacklist, which makes so much sense. That's so crazy. But I'm guessing that's why Liz is, because her mom did steal it apparently. And so that's when I'm like, because I was wondering, like, does she have like the Sikorsky archive like inside of her or something like that? The scar on her is kind of a roadmap to it. So maybe like she has maybe she has a chip or something implanted in her. I feel like that would have come up before now. Or maybe it's like DNA based, that basically Liz has access to it. Like maybe you need specific DNA to get inside of it or something like that. Because it's like that night, it's like, were you one of my mom's friends or something? And it was like, because she was trying to understand. She's like, why were you there that night of the fire when Liz ended up shooting her dad? Like, why were you there that night? So, but the reason why this sets off like so many like things off in my head, I'm like, once again, then why the hell was Katerina so hell-bent on going after him, trying to clear her name? So it's like, so are we suggesting that what, because someone else had thrown that out there, like maybe Katerina wasn't Katerina. Even I felt that at some point in time, but I was like, no, maybe she is. I don't know. Random things start popping in the back of my mind. I was like, you don't think Mrs. French is Katerina? But it also, like, if she's that closely tied to quote-unquote Katerina, it makes you go, maybe she should be a little wary of leaving Agnes with her. I don't know. But I'm part of, like I said, maybe part of me thinking, like, maybe she's the real Katerina da Silva. But it's like, then who the hell was that lady? Like, was she someone that knew what Reddington had, and this whole thing was about trying to convince Liz to turn against him because his greatest ally could end up becoming his greatest enemy? And granted, she kind of helped basically dismantle him. Which also it goes back to the question of, how much did Kate know? Did Kate only know the tip of the iceberg with this? She was the one willing to dismantle everything, even though she was aware that everything Reddington did was for the purpose of protecting her. But I guess for her, it was like, regardless of his intentions, he's no longer being able to keep her safe. So, once again, this also explains like why not just Townsend, like everyone in the world will come after her, because I think she is the key to the Blacklist. Like, she is probably one of the only other people that will be able to have access to it. And when Reddington's like, oh, I'm leaving you my criminal empire, I'm assuming it means this too. Like, he wants her to be the next him in all of this. Like, this might, in some cabal-like way, even though there was previously a cabal that no longer exists, it's like, maybe like this Blacklist could help balance the scales in a way, because once again, we still don't know what the hell him and Ivan's Stepanov's like whole end game is. It's like, are you planning on using this to kind of control, like, is this your way of like doing like an ultimate peace thing, kind of like a mutually assured destruction thing of like, right, we have info on everyone, and if anyone strikes, we have enough information to destroy everyone. So it's a thing of like, no one wants to strike, so maybe in some weird way, it's creating a form of like peace where everyone kind of has to like, all right, we'll back down because you got some stuff on us we don't want out there type of thing. I don't know. I mean, because they have been building this out for the past 30 years. Once again, it was just the seed. I mean, it was only 13 packets. It was enough to get them started, but obviously they had to work these past 3 decades to get to what they are. But I guess their intelligence network is almost complete. Like, I'm thinking it's kind of with this being what they've been working on, it means that must mean that the Blacklist is almost complete. I mean, maybe it's not just like these particular people. Maybe it is just kind of like there's other things along with the Blacklist. Like, he's pulling particular names from the Blacklist, but maybe the Blacklist holds so much more information that we've only been scratching the tip of the iceberg with what the Blacklist is actually, what information it actually pertains and everything. I have no idea. Like I said, my mind is firing off in so many different, because it makes you go, then why did Kate and Katerina do what they did? Unless that wasn't really Katerina, and maybe Kate was still in the dark about a lot of stuff. Once again, maybe just because she legitimately thought Reddington needed to be stopped because he wasn't protecting Liz anymore, that he was actually causing more danger. Even though in his own way he was preventing more danger from coming in her life, but I guess it's like he kind of failed on some fronts because he let stuff slip up to the point that the FBI was able to look into stuff they shouldn't have been able to. Liz looked into some stuff she shouldn't have been able to. So, where all of this is going to take us, I have no idea. I ended up watching this episode after the fact, so I didn't even catch any glimpse of a preview of what's to come. So if you don't know, I'm someone who doesn't watch the previews anyway, but every once in a while I'll catch a glimpse of things. So we are, at the very least, we're entering the territory where we're finally getting some answers. Maybe next episode is going to be full blown, every answer, at least a lot of questions you've had potentially being answered, maybe that type of thing. I have no idea. Maybe we'll get some of the answers, maybe we won't get all of it, but it's like Reddington is promising to tell her everything now. So maybe this is going to change Liz's perspective. Maybe it's also going to give her understanding of why Townsend's soul wants her dead now, because it's like, more so than anything, it's like you, once again, potentially being a key to the archive makes you the reason why his family ended up dying. Like, she was probably like, because once again, we don't know the time frame in which his family died. I'm assuming it was sometime after Liz was born, so it's probably a thing of you hold the keys to it, so you're associated with the thing that ultimately led to my family getting killed. So, especially when it's like, oh, Katerina, also when it finds out, wait, Katerina was the one who stole it and everything. Because, like I said, that contradicts, like, you know, why Katerina came into, like, she wanted to, like, clear it. Like, who the hell was that if that wasn't Katerina? Like, what's going on? So many questions. Hopefully we get some answers to that, because I'm surprised that didn't immediately come up the list and like, wait, if you were protecting my mom and my mom gave you her blessings for all this, then why the hell are we here where we are right now? Not unless that was the initial thing, but then no, because she came with the whole thing of being like, I was framed for the archive. So maybe even the story she told Liz isn't the truth, or at least maybe there's some truth, that the real truth lies somewhere in between. Because once again, that's always a thing. The truth is someone else's, this person's story and this person's story, and the truth lies somewhere in between. So I'll shut up for now. We'll ultimately just have to wait and see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.